The Dragon Ball Super situation might be completely different than we initially thought, as Toyotaro finally speaks in an interview at Japan Expo Paris 2025, and here's the translations. Alright guys, we are here. It's the fated day, man. Welcome back to another Dragon Ball Super video, and it feels so good to say that, man. I know I say that a lot lately, but honestly, over the past almost 2 years at this point, almost, how often have we even had a chance to do a full dedicated Dragon Ball Super video with news, mind you? So I know you all have, as well as myself, have been waiting for this day where Toyotaro finally shows up to this event and speaks on everything surrounding Dragon Ball Super, him in particular, and kind of where his head is at since Toriyama's passing last year. So we're over on the official Dragon Ball Super France website, where they've translated the entire interview between the event and Toyotaro. So we're gonna start from the top, man. There's a lot to go over in this interview, so we're not gonna make the intro too long. So they're gonna start off by introducing the interview, saying interview with Toyotaro, Dragon Ball Super manga artist at Japan Expo 2025. And I can already feel myself getting excited. I don't really know what he's gonna say yet. I haven't gone over this myself, like off camera or anything like that. I'm experiencing this with you guys, so I gotta taper myself, calm down, because I don't want to start talking too fast, tripping over my words, and lose anybody. So they're going to start off by saying Dragon Ball Super manga artist Toyotaro is one of the special guests at the 2025 edition of Japan Expo, which is taking place all weekend in France at the Parc des Expeditions de Paris Nord Villepinte. Hey, let me know if I killed that right there. Maybe I put a little bit of too much Spanish twang on it. I feel like I did good right there. Alongside other big names in the Dragon Ball franchise, such as Kazuhiko Toriyama, Akira Toriyama's first editor, and Katsuyoshi Nakatsuri, animator on the Dragon Ball animated series, Toyotaro traveled to France to meet fans and deliver some talks and signing sessions, but was also able to give interviews to the press. Okay, this says interviews, so this probably wasn't the only one he did over the weekend. Maybe other entities asked him different questions, and we'll start seeing those pop up over the next few days as well. I don't know, but I guess this is the main one we were kind of waiting on. And the famous radio station France Inter, or maybe this was just the first one to get theirs out, was able to ask Toyotaro a few questions in which he talks about his admiration for Akira Toriyama and what he was able to bring to him about his work, his habits, his relationship with the fans, or even the narrative arc on which he took the most pleasure in working. Okay, so right off the bat, I feel like this interview is just gonna more so be about Toyotaro and his relationship and things that he learned from Toriyama, probably not getting exactly into the super manga and things like that. So maybe that's still to be announced. I don't know, maybe I'm just getting my hopes up too far, but that's the vibe I'm getting from just how they introduced this interview. So the first question France Inter is gonna ask is, 1 year after Toriyama's death, what image do you have of him today? So Toyotaro is going to respond, he was truly a very kind person, incredibly tolerant, a bit like a wise old man. He had a heart. As soon as he had something on his mind, he could become uncompromising about it. A very kind person, and at the same time, there was this rigor about him that I could feel because I was afraid of disappointing him. He taught me the art of manga directly, and that is a priceless lesson that you could get from Akira Toriyama. I know that he holds that dear to his heart. This technique that he passed on to me, that he taught directly, must be a legacy that I protect. I must take it in my hands. Yeah, I know he holds that personally. So next they're gonna ask, you are his designated successor. Do you feel any particular pressure, especially given the popularity of Dragon Ball? You know, this is something that all of us think and have said amongst ourselves in the community, but I feel like, is this the first time an entity has asked him this question, like in an official interview? I don't know, I might be tripping, but I feel like this is a very good question to ask him directly instead of us just saying it. So Toyotaro is going to respond, I don't see myself as a successor, his heir, but as a member of the team trying to continue to spread Akira Toriyama's works to the world. I don't think I have to take everything on my shoulders. I'm glad he feels like that. You don't have to take everything on your shoulders. In that sense, obviously I do have a responsibility, but that responsibility is shared and I'm not alone. There's the entire production. There are all the fans. It's truly a work that was created by many people. I'm so happy that he answered this like that. I'm glad that he doesn't feel like everything is on his shoulders, no matter what we as the community have been saying over the past year. I'm so glad that he's not putting all that pressure on himself, and it doesn't seem like everybody else in the Dragon Ball production committee are putting that responsibility on him either. So I'm very happy to hear that. But successor is a bit of a strong word. He's gonna go on. This responsibility isn't just mine. It's truly a team effort. When Akira passed away, we really felt we needed to protect his legacy even more. So the next question is gonna say, the fact that you've been a Dragon Ball fan since childhood, does that change anything in the way that you create? So Toyotaro was gonna respond by saying, I love Dragon Ball. I love it too much almost. There are some readers who aren't very familiar with the work, and sometimes I'll really put in very specific niche details. Sometimes I try to avoid these slightly niche topics. For example, just in a small vignette. For fans, it can be interesting, but it's still very limited. And if I repeat this kind of experience a little too often, light fans, or I guess more casual fans, he probably didn't want to use the word casual right here, well, if you will, risk being a little bored. And we've seen that with things like Daima and stuff like that, even though that wasn't Toyotaro, that was Akira Toriyama. Precisely. What is your relationship with the manga fan? Okay, this is a good question right here. What is your relationship with the manga fans? France Inter is gonna ask. Toyotaro is gonna reply, from my perspective, I see them as partners with whom we're going to co-create this work. It's a manga that exists solely because the fans exist. I want to create something that everyone will enjoy. I don't want to create something on my own and just impose my vision on the work. This is a good answer, but I also feel like Toyotaro should be a little bit more, not aggressive, a little bit more I guess headstrong in taking the reins. I know in the last question he just answered, not the one before this but the one before that, I think it was, he said that all that pressure and responsibility isn't on him, and he could be doing this behind the scenes, we don't know. This is just, you know, me speaking my thoughts on what he's saying. I feel like he should be a little bit more assertive with taking the lead with this, because we all know that Toriyama saw something that I guess not a lot of other people saw in Toyotaro way ahead of time. I'm talking like the AF days. Toriyama saw something in Toyotaro, and that's why he's in the position he's in today, because Toriyama believed in him. So I think it's okay for him to be a little bit more assertive with what he wants to do with the manga from now on. What inspires you to draw? They're gonna ask next. Toyotaro is gonna respond, there's already Akira Toriyama, but ultimately it would be a pale copy if I only drew inspiration for him. There's also cinema and other manga. I try to draw inspiration from that and update myself regularly. There are also Pixar and Marvel film. Oh, Toyotaro's a Marvel fan? Oh, snap. And I'm a big Star Wars fan too. Ultimately, I realized sometimes that I was influenced by Star Wars without being aware of it at the time, but there's a certain connection. Akira Toriyama was also a Star Wars fan. I actually didn't know that about either one of these guys, that they're both big Star Wars fans. I mean, I guess you could kind of see it in some of the especially I guess the granola arc with Toyotaro. You can kind of get little hints of that here and there, but him being a Marvel fan is pretty cool. I never knew that. I like him a lot more now. Next question is gonna say, being a manga artist is a lot of work. How much time do you spend drawing each day? This is a very important question because we've heard about mangaka kind of deteriorating at a faster rate because of how much they work. So hopefully he's taking care of himself. Toyotaro was gonna respond, while I was publishing the series, apart from sleeping, eating, and showering, everything else was dedicated to the manga. When the deadline is approaching, the last week, we get down to 3 or 4 hours of sleep. Even though 3 or 4 hours of sleep is still bad, I really hope that that's per day still and not 3 to 4 hours over the course of that last week. Tell us, how do you work? France Inter is gonna ask next. Toyotaro will respond by saying, at first, the ideas come. Then when everything has been decided, when I start drawing, I start putting on the television and music. I need a little noise, otherwise I have trouble getting motivated. When there are lyrics, I'm carried away by them. Otherwise, I'll listen to the soundtrack of a film like Star Wars or Japanese cinema with a pressing tempo. That's kind of how I am also. I can't work in silence, like my mind will just start. So the next thing they're gonna ask is, do you have time to read manga at all? He's gonna respond by saying, I think you have to keep reading manga, so I make time for it. Reading manga is part of my job, and it's not something I can do while really relaxing. So he reads it as a job and not, I guess, in his free time. That's interesting. Coming to Dragon Ball, what was your favorite story arc to draw? I can already guess this. So Toyotaro was gonna say Trunks. I had a lot of fun writing this arc. He's a character who was very close to what I wanted to do. The American movies, and we can kind of tell that with the granola arc. The American movies I saw when I was young, that universe was something I really liked, and so I knew I had this ambition and desire to be able to draw that. Being able to make that happen was very good for me. You've almost always drawn Dragon Ball, they say. Do you regret not having been able to assert your style more? Toyotaro was gonna respond by saying, I really like Dragon Ball. I wanted to write for Dragon Ball, and that's why I became a manga artist. I have no regrets about where my career is now. I became a manga artist because I wanted to draw Dragon Ball, so I'm happy. So, you don't miss it? Toyotaro was gonna respond by saying, perhaps drawing original storyboards will help me grow as a manga artist, and even when I return to Dragon Ball stories, when I return, hey, there will be a return, boys. When I return to Dragon Ball stories, perhaps it'll allow me to take new approaches. I still have the motivation and ambition to be able to approach the subject from different angles and perhaps have a new development in my career and skills. And that, fellas, is gonna conclude Toyotaro's interview. Well, one of Toyotaro's interviews this weekend that he had with France Inter, and I appreciate both of these entities for even doing this and kind of giving the fans a little bit more insight onto how Toyotaro's been doing over the past year since Toriyama passed away. Once again, rest in peace. But they were also able to get another little excerpt right here on Dragon Ball Super's France website that says Dragon Ball must not end, and this is gonna be a little excerpt from another interview that Toyotaro had over the weekend, this time by France Info. And they're gonna say Toyotaro talks to us this time about France, his first encounter with Dragon Ball, and his journey to become a mangaka. He also tells us that his favorite character from Dragon Ball Super is Granola. I knew it, man. A character he created himself, obviously that's why I felt like he would be his favorite character, and who was immediately validated by Akira Toriyama. Toyotaro also talks about the death of his master and explains that he went through a period of doubt at this time. Finally, Toyotaro tells us that according to him, Dragon Ball should not end, and that it's the strength of the fans that will allow the work to continue. So you guys heard it here first from Toyotaro himself, man. Now, even though we've only had the singular one shot from Toyotaro this year when it comes to Dragon Ball Super's manga, he's still been pretty busy, and I wanted to bring this up as well. Dragon Ball Super France tweeted this out. So Toyotaro announces his new manga at Japan Expo 2025, The Lost Samurai, and I guess this is just a rough draft as of right now. So I know there was a lot of confusion and mistranslations, people going back and forth, the Expo even saying something about this a couple of weeks ago when we pretty much were told and thought that Toyotaro was starting an original manga, and then people went back on that. Like I said, the Expo said something themselves. So it is announced now that Toyotaro will be starting his new manga, The Lost Samurai, but I don't want everybody to kind of get up in arms about this. This doesn't mean that Toyotaro is done with Dragon Ball Super or anything like that. I just wanted to show you guys this because over here, it has been confirmed that this is a one-shot. So don't faint over this, guys. Dragon Ball Super is still on the horizon somewhere. We just don't know where or when yet. But Toyotaro is working on a one-shot called The Lost Samurai. So I can't wait to see what he does with this. I think there was actually, yeah, right here. So it is gonna be, what, 45 pages? And these are just rough drafts of the storyboard right now. So I don't know about you guys, but me personally, I'm gonna be checking this out. I don't know if I'll do a video on it per se, maybe if I really like it, but I'm just a fan of Toyotaro the person, man. And if you really like and support Toyotaro, not just what he's doing for Dragon Ball Super, you'll probably check this out as well. So like I said, I don't know if I'll necessarily do a video on it, but let me know down below in the comments how you guys felt about everything Toyotaro said here today. I'll try to see if I can find other translated interviews that he had over the weekend. Maybe I can find the France Info one. Let's see if I just click right here. Okay, so it's a video, it's not translated yet. Unfortunately, no return date for the Dragon Ball Super manga yet. That was really one of the only things that we wanted to get from the Expo happening this weekend. Everything else was kind of just a long shot. Honestly, with everything we know surrounding this situation with Dragon Ball Super and the two entities kind of fighting in the background, that might have been a long shot also. But that doesn't mean that Dragon Ball Super is done and over with. One day we will get that big announcement, man. But it is good to see and hear that Toyotaro's doing well since everything happened last year. He's taking care of himself. He's getting his mind back right. He's still drawing. And I'm really happy to hear that he doesn't feel like the entire responsibility of carrying the series forward rests on his shoulders alone. He does have a team around him. We, the fans, support him. And I'm just glad that he doesn't feel like it's all on him now. Of course, I do want to see him take a little bit more leadership and assertiveness with Dragon Ball Super, because he kind of is at the forefront, but it's not all on him. That's the important part, because that would that would exhaust somebody real quick. But anyways, fellas, let me know what you thought about this interview down below in the comments. Hopefully I can find any more interviews that were translated over the weekend from Toyotaro. Maybe that Friends info one. But I'll look around, see what I can find. Anyways, fellas, have a great day, and I will see you all in the next one.